Welcome to the Vettrasoft series of tutorials on how to use the Z directory. This is the first tutorial. In this episode we'll look at how to create a new Visual Studio project using a few simple low-level Z directory objects. And I'll start by creating a console application by opening up a new project in Visual Studio 2005 I'm going to use. File, new project. And I'm going to make a console application. I'll call it prog1 for our first program. Now the first thing I need to do is to configure the project so that it knows where to find the Z directory header files and libraries. So if you click on Properties for the project, and Configuration Properties, C++, Additional Include Directories, we'll add the environment variable ZDir-Includes. Now this is automatically set up for you when you install the Z directory. Now, the installer will create these environment variables. Also, ZDir devlibs points to the libraries themselves, and we'll add the libraries. I have a list right here. There's, in this case, 11 libraries, and the Z directory is broken up into layers, and we're going to be using a file object in our example, which is a layer 10 object. Could be layer 9. Let's see what else. Code generation. We're not going to make a DLL. So that should just about do it. And I'm going to get rid of these Microsoft specific types and whatnot. And here we go. Let's make a few integer variables for holding error codes. And every Z directory program starts with a Z start and ends with a Z finish. Given that, first thing I want to do is create a string object called S. And you notice the string object is string underscore O. Underscore O indicates it's an object in the Z directory context. That's pretty standard for almost every object, if not every object. Make another string object, and I'll make an STime variable called T for getting the time, and we'll set it to current time with T.now. Let's include the header files now. I'm going to copy this first so I can. First, I'll include the strings, Z string for the string object, and we'll include the STime object that way. Copy this guy, and we also want the file object. We're going to use a math subroutine, so math subs. And you'll notice all the header files in the Z directory start with Z underscore. That's pretty standard. And finally, I want to add some encryption, and I'm going to use a multi-crypt object to do that. And that's its header file. Next, I want to add the time to the string. So I go S plus equals T. That's it. Now I want to save it to a file, so let's make a file object F and assign it a name with a path in my C drive temp demo subdirectory, and I'll call the file mypass.txt. Now to assign the string to a file, F equals S. Now boom, it's written to a file now. Okay, the part 2 is the encryption, and for that I'm going to use AES encryption, also known as Riendale. Sorry if I mispronounced it. And the thing about AES, you need to have the password and the data itself be multiples of 16 or 32. And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm going to pad the string S to a multiple of 16. The way I'm going to do that is by these two count type variables, which are Z directory types. And I'm going to use a function ZILUM, which is integer least upper multiple. And I'm going to compute the number for NB, which is the size of S. Now I'm going to set up an iteration. And on each loop, I'm going to add a string to S consisting of a single character, a single star. We're going to star pad it. So now the password for our AES encryptor has to be 16 characters. So I think I'll be able to remember that one. And now finally, the multicrypt object, which using C for cipher, CX is our instance. I want to add UU encoding, and the way I do that is the UU coding function. And I want to use UUS yes stripped. So I want to do UU encoding, and now I need to specify which encryptor I'm using by the add crypto function. Give it the name AES, so it knows which one. Give it the password. There are no other parameters. Some encryptors have a second parameter, namely RSA, which when you're decoding will need the public and the private key, and hence that third parameter is there. The fourth parameter is an error indicator variable, which is an integer pointer. And that's, if it's non-zero, it's an error. That's pretty standard in Z directory. I'm going to assume that works, so I'm not going to check the return value. Now for the actual encryption. Encrypt. I'm going to encrypt S. I'm going to write it to S2. And I'll give it that error variable. And I'm going to check that error variable if IE2. And if it's non-zero, I'll print a message. Encryption failed. We're going to exit out with a 1 if I can type. And now I'm going to save it to a file. Recycle the file object we had. First, I'm going to, for kicks, I'll remove the file. And now I'll write S2 to it, the encrypted output. And that's it. Tiny little sample. Let's compile this. Being a live take, see how good my typing is. Yeah, looks like it worked. I've typed this more than once. And instead of running it straight, I'm going to run it in the debugger, and I'm going to put a breakpoint right where we write the first output to a file, actually just after it, and run it. And then we're going to go take a look at what that file looks like. So we should have the date written to it. And off it goes. We're at the breakpoint, and in temp demo, there's my pass.txt. Cat my pass.txt, and there's the contents. As you can see, there's the date at the very end. I'm making this on April 21st, 6 p.m., 6:24. All right, now let's run it to the end. And Hopefully it'll exit with a 0. Yep, sure did. Let's go back to our window and dump it out again. And there is our encrypted, AES encrypted, and UU encoded output for the same text. Alright, there you have it, the Z directory. You can download it at vettrasoft.com, www.vettrasoft.com, and turbocharge your coding